and welcome to the Conservation Land Bank Commission meeting, Friday, March 21st. And we will open the meeting by welcoming public comment. We have a full house here. This is great to see I think all the staff. I see one guest and another guest online. So does anybody have public comment to share with us? Okay, I see no commenters.
There's that
one. Okay, we will continue then with our partner update from the San Juan Preservation Trust. Vicki Edwards had to be away today, but in her place for the trust is Nancy Green, former Land Bank Commissioner, longtime Preservation Trustee. Nancy, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, it's good to see everybody here too as well, and happy spring to everybody. I'm filling in for Vicki, as Brian mentioned, and so I only have a couple of things that I want to touch on today. One is that we closed on North Shore on March 17th, and I just want to thank all of the staff on the Preservation Trust and the Land Bank, especially from our side. Vicki and Angela and Kathleen, who is the project lead, and
Nancy, excuse me, you have an echo. Oh, okay.
Wow.
How do you do that?
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
stopped? Yeah, it sounds like it stopped. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, well, I just want to special thanks to Angela Anderson and Vicki Edwards and Kathleen Lewis on our side. Kathleen, who took the project lead, and also I wanted a special shout out to Peter on Orcas for all of the incredible work you did on bringing people to the land and showing them the possibilities and coordinating all of that. It's been an amazing transformation. And I think it really demonstrates this has been a very complicated process, how we can all work so well together. I appreciate, and I don't know if Jane is there or not, but I also want to thank Jane for being able to pull a very quick meeting together so that we could meet our goal of connecting with a donor who is very much responsible for part of this project and who we hope to have working with us going forward. And I know Lincoln's going to talk more about it later, so I just want to say thank you and yay, we've got that. The last thing I want to mention is Kathleen is back on track for our annual Bluebird Blitz. So there are going to be volunteers on, let's see, I'm trying to see what the dates are. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh yeah, March 28th coming up and April 11th at Zylstra Lake and King Sisters. We're going to be having volunteers sort of check the return of the bluebirds, kind of where they've come from, and just kind of generally how that project is going. So that's another exciting thing. If people want to volunteer, they can go to our website and sign up. So that's all I have to report today, and it's great to see all of you, and thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. And normally we have our council update at this point. Council member Fuller does not appear to be here.
There's a medical
okay
with her husband, so she may be on later.
Okay, so we will make room for her later if she makes it back.
We have minutes to approve.
Sorry?
Minutes to approve.
Oh, did I skip the minutes? Okay, minutes. Commissioners, comments, questions? Well, I have. Let's see, two very minor things. Bottom of page 2, the action item about the mitigation, False Bay Creek mitigation plan. under, action item, last sentence, the policy was approved unanimously. Really, that should say the plan. Because we approved the policy
Right.
a couple of years ago. Then moving down, the top of page 3, the second action item, Anne Marie Shanks moved the conveyance of the sale of the North Shore Preserve Conservation easement to San Juan Preservation Trust. I think we meant to say something like, Anne Marie moved the sale of the North Beach Conservation easement, or moved the conveyance of the North Beach Conservation easement, either one, but not both. Move to approve, sure.
Did we not do both at the same time?
They were, okay, there are two motions here, it appears to me. So, and they're different. So the second one, I think is just the conveyance. Okay, staff, clear? Great. That's all for me. Thank you.
And a couple very, very minor. On page 4, the future action items. Something got a little mixed up, I think, and, I gather these are the people who are looking into each subject.
Yeah.
And then Brian noted he'd like to prioritizing and devoting discussion time. So just prioritize and devote, I think,
Okay.
very minor.
And if that's all, that leads into commission comments.
I noticed that the meeting is adjourning early this time, and it's so much fun. I thought, no, I had a suggestion if this works for people to extend the meeting slightly and consider some of the future action items that we seem to put off pretty well. At least get started on them. So that would mean, since there's an executive session scheduled for the end of the meeting, it would mean bumping that back a little bit. Does that meet with any approval, or did I miss something?
Works for me. We have time, before both votes. Anybody else? Yeah. Brief discussion of sort of arranging those agenda
Yeah,
items for
yeah,
the future.
more or less just prioritizing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So are we changing the time of the executive session?
Yes, well, potentially, yeah.
Okay. I just asked John Payne whether there are any issues with that.
No, it's okay if you can modify your agenda. It sounds like.
Okay.
Also, you are sticking to all of the things that are already on the agenda. So
Yeah.
it makes it even more of a non-problem.
Okay, great.
Okay, continuing with commission comments. Who else would like to comment?
Well, I'll go.
Please.
Where have I been? I was at the West Side Preserve yesterday in the wind and the rain. I've been up and down Mount Grant, which is great to see in the off season. It's a really different experience. And I was impressed how many trees had come down, big trees. And they were all cleared up off the road, so. I also had an opportunity on a very rainy day to get over to Lopez to see the Fisherman Bay Spit Preserve, which I haven't been to in a long time, and walk all the trails there. Really appreciated that perspective, and there are people out there in the middle of the rain, so that was good. And I got to go to the Challen Preserve, which I've never been to before. And the great surprise there was that you can actually walk on the public tidelands at low tide. And that was just, it's like finding a jewel in the sand. I had no idea that was a possibility for that preserve. So really good experience. And getting there on my checklist.
Very important. Thanks, Marilyn. Who else?
I'll do a report. So Aaron and Tim and I went on a very, very, very fun field trip yesterday on Shaw. And we went out to Picnic Point and were guided around by one of the owners. It's owned by a family and small piece, but it's incredible what's out there culturally, ecologically, just unbelievable. So it was really fun and we had a great time. It was freezing cold because the wind was just like, but that didn't matter.
Where's Picnic Point? I'm sorry.
Right next to Canoe Island. Little piece, been in the family for a long time. Yeah, and Tim found a marker, a geologic marker that was 1839.
1898, I think, there were two actually.
There were two. What?
Sorry, I wrote it down. It's been in the family since 1925.
Yeah, long time. Anyway, really sweet.
And
So,
what is Picnic Point? Is it a conservation easement?
no, it's a discussion about a property that maybe will come to us.
Okay.
So we don't have it yet.
Okay.
If we do. Complex property. When I was at the Ag Summit, Charlie did a presentation, was part of a panel. I went to a couple of different things. It was a great Ag Summit and there was a lot of attendance and a lot of energy. Really, people were really excited about it. And a lot of things happening. Bird field trip with Amanda. That was fun out at the Spirit or the Spit Preserve. And then we had a conversation with NRCS about ag easements. So Aaron set that up. And then last night I watched the beaver film that Joe Gatos had put in our notes. Everybody should watch it. It is incredible. It's amazing. So that's my report.
I was so enamored of my visits to land bank preserves. I forgot to mention that I also met with Lincoln and Aaron to discuss financial issues. This is our first finance committee review. And my particular interest has to do with how we present our financial information to ourselves and to the public, because I'm really in favor of everybody being able to understand the numbers, and many people are not numbers people. And also to come up with a set of financial guidelines so that we all sort of understand and have the same expectation of how we're handling things. And I think it's worth a review every once in a while. Anyway. So we'll be meeting you then next month.
Okay. That is one of our future agenda items, so we can talk about that and, the timing a little bit later. Okay. I have a question about the Ag Summit you mentioned at the NRCS. The stewardship notes mentioned that NRCS has, I guess, matching grants for ag conservation easements. I would like to hear more about that, maybe later during the stewardship report or whenever it's appropriate. That's
Well, we could talk about it.
Very
It's
interesting.
not easy to meet the criteria, but we can talk about it. And who knows how much money they have. Right?
who knows?
You can guess.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Peggy. Anybody else?
I'll note that Anne Marie and Tim and I, along with staff, relaunched the communications committee. And Zoe and Lincoln, of course, and had a good meeting. And each one has lots more to do. But I don't know if that's on our agenda later, but it was a good start, so. Good start.
Future, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good, thanks, Amy. Henry?
Well, we have a conservation easement on a property in Deer Harbor that used to be owned by a gentleman or a family named the Connors, and it sold last year to a family under the name of Robeson. And Mr. Robeson is now selling the property. So a lot of the neighbors are really excited about the way it's been packaged in the advertisements. And Aaron went to some trouble to kind of look at some potential opportunities for us. But I don't sense that there's a driving enthusiasm in the community, which is what would be needed to buy the land, so, and that property is always controversial, there's just like no way around it. Whether it's trimming trees or if not, there's ever been fish or salmon and Fish Creek and who damned what, so. Yeah, just a little buzz in the neighborhood.
Is that the one that's right, down and along the creek? Right near Deer
Yeah.
Harbor?
Yes,
It was
it's a little.
Quite a long, it's an old building, right? And we've had it for a long time.
Right, yeah,
It is complicated.
This is the former Connor Conservation Easement,
Right.
Right, yeah.
yeah, so, and Robeson has inherited that, so.
He's moving to Rosario.
Well,
I
actually,
didn't say that.
well, actually, he has a home next to the property, which also gets a lot of buzz. So,
Okay.
I think that's enough on it. Just some of the local Deer Harbor towns.
Okay, is that everybody? Okay, director's report, Megan.
All right, very good. So we have a few things. I'll start off with the North Shore Preserve CE closing. I think Nancy covered it really well. That must be someone calling to
It's spring.
check in. Everything went according to plan, and so closing happened and it's done. Thank you, Peter, for all of your phenomenal work. You and Tyler out there, they've converted that into something completely different and much more natural. So enjoy. We'll see how the summer goes. As we opened it at the end of last summer, it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up this year as the weather gets warmer and we get more people out there, but that one you can check off. Couple of other things I was at council this week and they did two things really. They extended or amended our ordinance to extend the date for conservation REIT collection to 2038.
That's good. That was a good catch on it.
So that's done. And also they approved a direct sale of the southern two lots of Fraser Homestead Preserve to the National Park Service. And I did check in with the Park Service. The realty officer is still there. Fortunately, things seem to be on track. So we got the document we needed to send off to them done. It caused a little bit of interest in that we were supposed to affix the county seal. I raised this issue at a department head meeting. No one had any clue what the county seal was. But I found out, it is in the auditor's office. They do affix it to marriage licenses. They have a seal, which is probably 150 years old. And they will just put the seal on things. I think this may be the only other document that's ever had a seal other than a marriage license in the last 50 years, but whatever. So that's proceeding.
They still have money.
They apparently still have money.
Okay.
So have you checked this week after the CR got signed into law?
Well, this was this week.
Okay.
So I checked in with them on Tuesday. I'm not sure when the CR was signed into law.
So last Friday, the continuing resolution was signed into law. What I've been hearing from contacts in DC is that for a whole host of federal agencies, the fiscal year 24 budgets that were approved got zeroed out. Not all of them, but in some cases, thankfully, it's left up to agency discretion.
Mhm.
So that's why I was just saying.
Well, we'll see. just proceed down the track and hope for the best.
How soon can the conveyance happen from our end?
From our end, we're ready to go, basically. They have a couple of due diligence things they need to do, but I don't have a timeline from that one, when they're expecting to close.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Do you happen to know who the attorney representing the Park Service is?
No, I'm dealing with the realty office. So. That's that. The council is meeting next week on Lopez on the 25th, and they're going to do a field trip down to Whatmount.
Oh, that's so,
Ooh,
we better show up.
You should probably show up. That'd be a good idea.
So what date is that?
The 25th, Tuesday. Okay, next up is the Beaverton Trail Project. You'll note that's what we're calling it now. This is the next iteration of the Zylstra, Town to Zylstra Trail, which the county tried to do over a couple of years. And obviously it did not go well. There was a lot of pushback in the community on people not wanting to give up property for this trail and a variety of other things. So in the end, we did start talking to council and county manager about the possibility of diverting that money to Beaverton, where we've put a lot of work into the existing trails, especially Red Tail Trail, which departs from Friday Harbor via John Lindy Community Park and does proceed west in the general direction of Zylstra. But the project is not to get to Zylstra. It is really purely to create a multimodal trail across the preserve that will come out at our Halverson entrance on the other side. I think this is a great development, given that we put that trail in, we opened it last year. We've had a lot of people out there, and we put up a little schematic of what the marsh crossing, which is the main issue, could look like. But we had no idea where we were going to find that money. We knew it was going to be a complex engineering question. And so this solves the money side of that, hopefully. So we'll be working on this project. We have to have a contract let for construction by September of 2026. So this is going to be quite a bit of work for us. I think we'll be looking to try and hire an outside project manager to get this thing done. But it'll be a big undertaking.
Use it or lose it.
And what happens to the money that's not spent? If we we won't use the 5 million, right?
I doubt it. I doubt we'll use all of it. I can't imagine that, honestly. The rest of it will go back to the federal government. So that was a bit of big news. I think the feedback we've gotten from the community so far has been really positive. And I would say mostly because a lot of people have been out on that trail and seen that potential marsh crossing and have gotten excited. I know we've continued to get calls from people like, what, are you getting that done next week? Now we actually have money to do it. So that's been amazing.
So we can talk about it as a trail, as the Beaverton Trail.
Yes, we did. And I checked in with Sean Connell, who's Representative Larson's key staff person in the district. They're excited about it too. So everybody's on board. Everyone seems happy. And we'll talk about it as the Beaverton Trail. Yes.
Good news. Beaverton Trail.
Otherwise, I don't know that I have a whole lot else to report. I think we'll talk come back in executive session to talk about some potential acquisitions and also financing around those acquisitions.
You do have something else, Lincoln. You were gonna talk about the other gift to the land bank.
You were
from
right. You're right, Brian. I apologize.
It's not on the agenda.
I know, I thought I wrote that down. I wrote these other 5 things down. One other thing to report, yes, the Renew Committee, Newer Land Bank Committee, had some money left over from the campaign, and they decided to give us $20,000 to go toward events for volunteers. Events and maybe some swag. We'll see how it goes, but this will give us an opportunity to hold some events with volunteers, for volunteers, and to recruit volunteers. So we'll be doing that. We're incredibly grateful for that gift. It's a nice
Great.
windfall.
Schwag.
I don't know if we have acknowledged that in some way. I don't know whether there's anybody left to acknowledge that to, because I guess that
We're
group.
still alive.
Yeah.
You're still alive, thank you. At least a couple of you, but I understand that nobody wanted to volunteer to continue as Friends of the Land Bank,
That's true.
which is, I think is sad. That could have been very useful and friendly to us, but anyway, we do appreciate the 20,000. And I know that there was another gift associated with that. They have decided to gift us their website, if to the extent that we can use it. Maybe Tanya can talk about that. We are way ahead of schedule. Tanya, are you ready to do what am
I just
missing?
want to add one more thing. So the other part of the money that we had extra was gifted to the Conservation District for the YCC group, that's great, because they really need money. So that's good. And the money that has come to the land bank can only be used for, to be spent on things that are allowed. So no food, things like that.
That's not true, I would say, but we don't need to
Oh.
talk about that now.
Okay, not true.
Okay. Tanya, are you ready to do it now,
Sure.
little bit before the break?
Let's see, the subcommittee, that was Mike. Mike, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
His mic is on.
Yeah, Mike's on. Mike's on. The communications subcommittee met this week. I always have to think about what that is. And we did discuss one of the main purposes. We talked about the community conversations that came up in the last meeting in February. So the recommendation is to, yes, definitely go ahead. However, we will amend it to like a fall, we have doing traditionally one countywide meeting, hybrid, not hybridized. And I think the date, I'll double check, but I think the date was May 8th. It's a Thursday evening. So we will host it live in the Grange and then online. And that was the date that was available. Was it the 8th? It would be was it 8th? Okay.
Sorry, Tanya, I'm confused because I thought you just said a fall meeting.
No, like we have done in the past, the fall community conversations has always been
Gotcha.
one meeting, and the spring have been 3 separate per district. Sorry, I started in the middle. I apologize. I do that often.
So one spring meeting and then no fall meeting?
Well, I think we can
or
decide,
both.
but more than likely we'll
Okay.
still have the fall, but we're following a fall format, I guess is the best way to
So
put
we're
it.
looking at this coming May 8th?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah, and then more to be, we'll talk about, the committee will talk a little bit more about that, I think, and narrow down an agenda to share or recommend, I guess. And then still working on events through the summer, content for the annual report, which means I also need to start working on the Q1 newsletter. Upcoming, we're in March, there will be, we're participating in Arbor Day, I guess that's the end of April. There's a lot of things that are coming up all of a sudden, farmer's market, and And then tomorrow, next Friday is the last Art on the Preserves for Alchemy Art Center, that partnership. So they've done February and March. And then we're talking about doing maybe a few in the summer. They like the idea of focusing on one preserve or one area so they can see it through the seasons. So they're still very game to do summer and then into fall. Been talking with the San Juan Island Makers Guild. We will partner on a event April 5th, which they do, Orcas does a whole, or at least through the Makers Guild, Orcas month. So they celebrate Earth Day and Orcas throughout the month. April 5th will be a focus on nature and art. So they'll be out at North Shore Preserve between 10 and 2. And those are the most recent upcoming ones. But yeah,
I got a heads up yesterday, that, they're doing Orcas Earth Day again, as they have for several years. So we've always tabled at that event, and I guess we should decide whether we're gonna do it again. I'm game I think that's April 26th.
yeah, this year it's a little different. I mean, there's also Great Islands Cleanup, the county
Right.
participates
Yeah,
in.
on that day.
But this year, the 3 islands are not doing them together. So Orcas is, gotta double check. I think Lopez is a different day and Orcas and San Juan are the same. But on the 26th, they will have San Juan for sure. Amanda, can you remember if Lopez is the one
Lopez
that's
is
off?
April 12th because because of Torrey Lopez.
That's right. So Orcas and San Juan will be on the 26th, Great Islands Cleanup. Lopez will do it on the 12th. I haven't heard anything from Marcy about participating. We talked about other things. She's my contact over there.
Yeah, the same day as, well, on Earth Day, the same day they do the Great Island cleanup, they've always had a little fair
Yeah,
with a number of tables at the church social hall. So I don't know, I assume they're doing that again.
I don't
Uh,
know. She hasn't
maybe
talked to me about
If,
that. And
if
I
you
mean, they
talk
have
to Marcy,
a whole lineup, so we can
you
check
might
it.
ask her about that,
Yeah.
and I will too.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And then I think that's everything. Am I forgetting anything? A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks. I mean, the press release has gone out. I will say again, thank you to Erin Andrews, who, she covers the county council meetings and gets everything together as best can, with the parties involved to be prepped when a meeting happens, to be able to quickly get out notes. So, the Fraser lots as well as the Beaverton Trail projects, a lot of gratitude to her in helping get the information out to the public. So
Been
those
doing a great
press
job.
releases go out from Erin and from the county, but they're also posted on our website as well underneath.
Good team.
Yeah.
Seems to be working well. You want to say something about the website?
Oh, I do want to say something about the
Good.
website. So, maybe I wasn't ready. It's too early. Margot, who I don't think is online. Margot and I met with one of the designers on the team. And we spent a couple of hours going over the preserve page. We weren't happy with it. And so we gave them some feedback. And Kid, who is a person that we're working with, is working on that. We should have a template, I think maybe by today, if not Monday. We couldn't get through all the things in the time allotted, but I think he has a much better understanding what we were looking for. And so it's still once that template is set, I think then it's just a matter of plugging everything in. So hopefully at this rate, by the end of Q1, by April, maybe we can launch that at the same time as the newsletter. And then we may or may not, I'll talk to Erin next week, Andrews, about transferring over our email list because the county is now producing their own, different departments are producing newsletters through a company called Gov Delivery. And so we may transition to that or we may not. We're gonna have a discussion about that, what works best for Glenn.
So
I guess-
Tanya, are you saying that you're merging the Renew Land website with?
Oh, that website, no.
Oh, okay.
No, we will archive Jonathan McVeigh, who put that website together. I work with him through the San Juan Island Trails Committee as well. And so he has offered to archive all the pages and he's already shared the folders, the photo folders with us, many of which were Peter Fisher's photos.
Right.
And Peter Fisher has generously offered to let us use those in our website update. So we'll have all those items archived, but the website itself will not exist once the contract runs out in June.
Seems to me that that website had lots of good information about the land bank. Of course, it was
All the facts.
put out for the renewal, but yes, it had all the fact sheets and really gave a lot of information, most of which I think came from Lincoln, about what the land bank is and what we do for a whole range of different activities and organizations, what the impact is on housing and stuff. That stuff is valuable, and I would suggest that you consider incorporating it somehow.
Well, we can definitely talk about that in the communications committee, once we have all those items.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of options with the website to add resource pages. We've talked about that in the past. Easy enough to add.
good. Thanks. Okay, ready for a break? Let's see.
Wow, didn't we just start?
Well, you want to continue?
Yeah, okay, whatever.
What's the pleasure of the commission? Take a break or?
I would
Yeah.
suggest if you want to talk about the future agenda items, we could slip that in at this point.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Commissioners, Tim, you kick this off.
Oh, no. It seems like we have had a list for a long time and it keeps getting bigger rather than smaller. So as a start, we might think about prioritizing which ones
Yeah.
we think should come first. And then it gets difficult.
Maybe I
yeah.
could suggest that things that are already underway, might come first, since we're already moving on them, such as financial guidelines. We have a committee established, Mike, me, Aaron, and Lincoln. We've had one meeting, we have another meeting planned in April. I would anticipate that sometime later this spring, we'd be able to make a presentation to the land bank about any recommended, clarifications or adjustments or ways to communicate about financial issues that would at least open the door to the conversation. So that could happen, in the near future, I believe.
So we have a quarterly financial report and discussion coming up when
Next month.
next month.
So,
Is that too soon or?
yeah,
I think
yeah,
so.
because we have our next meeting, which should really be our final meeting for a draft guidelines, mid-April. So that's not gonna be enough time to
Okay.
put that together. So, May is totally doable for the May,
Right.
commission meeting to go over that.
So I would suggest at this point, rather than pin it to a specific date, because we don't know what else is gonna come up
Yeah.
on the agenda. I mean, it might be your second quarter financial report, or it might be sooner. Does that work?
Yeah, it works just fine.
Sounds good.
Because I'm looking forward to getting input from the rest of the commission about how I think, I'm not
Yeah.
not all about me. But as I said, I'm looking for clarity and simplicity in communicating how the land bank handles, financial issues.
Good. Agreed.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, one thought is going back and looking at our strategic plan, and there were a number of things that we said we wanted to do within a year. And obviously because of the renewal and all the things going on last year, but maybe that helps guide our priorities.
Yep.
See where there's overlap.
Yeah, Amy, most of these things actually come from the strategic plan, but I'm not sure that that's comprehensive, so I think it's a good suggestion and we can do that. Yeah. In the interest, Tim, of making this list or trying to make this list shorter, I think there's a couple of things that either have happened or are not relevant that we might knock off. As I mentioned a little while ago, the Friends Group apparently is not happening.
Yes.
So I think we can take that off the list. Tribal relations, I think are in progress. We've ongoing, I think we've extended an invitation to Frankie, I think. So that's gonna happen, can happen, I think, anytime. Peggy?
Well, so you say it's ongoing, but I think we need to be updated on what the
Yeah.
process is. And I'd really, really love to have Frankie
Yes.
attend sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
That would be, that
I-
would be a
I
priority.
guess
for
by
me.
ongoing, that's what I meant. I think the invitation is open, so when she comes and unless there's anything else that we need to wait for, I would think that could happen about any time.
I hope so. I'm looking at Lincoln.
Okay, we can shoot for next month for that.
Okay. And are we gonna ask her to, or what I would hope we could ask her to do is give us an overview of what the county process is, how we can best connect to that, and really facilitate stronger relations with the tribes. So I'd love to hear about process and opportunity.
So
Does that make sense?
You know, I was just saying, absolutely. I need to read that plan. I have a letter from her and the county plan and I haven't gotten to it yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe that's the first step is that it gets shared.
I looked it up, it's available,
Yeah.
so. I
Yeah.
can show it to you.
Is it online?
Yes.
Oh,
well, yeah, so maybe somebody could send that out to all of us. That'd be helpful.
that'd be great.
I can do that. Thank you.
So Tim, I'm sorry if I interrupted your process. Did you have any further ideas for priorities?
Not really, we could actually combine a few of these, it looks like, but that's just wordsmithing more than anything else.
Can I propose, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the sort of staff work chart and looking at that. I think that's gonna be a long process, and so maybe we could at least get ourselves organized on what that looks like so that we can start down that path sooner than later would be beneficial.
I think we are getting ourselves organized. I've had discussions with Lincoln and with Peggy in the past week or two, and to sort of outline possible steps toward the future. So when you talk about getting organized, Amy, what else did you have in mind?
Well, I had no idea that was going on, so
Yeah,
that's good.
I don't understand what this means, getting organized.
Yeah.
What are we talking
Right.
about? I mean, just, you know, I have actually worked in personnel and labor relations. Trying to get a sense of what you guys are talking about.
They were just talking about the way the organization is now, and it's very flat,
Okay.
meaning everyone reports to me.
Oh, fun.
And so there's a question of how we might change the organizational structure or, review of how it's working. What I propose is that two of you and Amy are a good subcommittee, and that we get together and talk about it before the next meeting.
okay. So to be agendized as soon as we can. That incidentally was one of the recommendations of the strategic plan, which recommended that we hire a consultant to look at the organizational structure. So one of the steps to getting that in line is deciding whether in fact we need a consultant. So
I
that's,
think we might need to tap into Anne Marie's expertise on this one as well.
yeah, because Lincoln and I brainstormed a little bit and we really don't know. I mean, we know some people who may know consultants, but we don't directly. So that's the discussion. I think the subcommittee is a good idea, and then we can decide
We
when
should
it's
probably
right.
talk to the HR people for the county too, since everybody's a county employee.
What HR people?
We do have an HR manager has been hired, director rather. I think they are due to start the middle of April. Okay, so I'll be checking in with them.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of discussion with the county manager about this, who is the de facto HR person at this point, but she's got her hands full with all kinds of other things.
Yeah, I would suggest that one piece of background information that we might all benefit from is having some idea of what the organization really is. As you say, it's flat. I would love to see position descriptions for all of the personnel in the land bank. And there are probably about 3 or 4.
I would be interested in getting not just position descriptions, but comparing those and have each staff person actually tell us what they do. So here's what I was hired to do. Here's what my job is, and maybe it's a lot more than that. Maybe it's evolved, and just get a sense of that, especially if we're looking ultimately at different job titles, a different organization structure. That seems like that would be really pertinent.
So we've been reviewing job descriptions, and there are quite a number of changes. We've got changes pending for the field assistant positions, for Tanya's position and for Aaron's position. Eliza's position that job description's been totally rewritten. So there has been quite a bit of change, and there are some that is pending right now. Pending any shift in how you're rated or paid has to go, if you're in the union, and everyone but me is in the union, has to go in front of a committee, classification committee, I think that's the title of it. So that meeting, I think, is scheduled for maybe, I think it's in the next couple of weeks. So we had to submit the
3rd Tuesday of April is when we meet.
Okay.
Twice a year.
So that's
one.
before the new HR person comes in?
Yeah, that's an ongoing process.
Okay.
So that committee meets twice a year, and we needed to get proposed changes to positions into them in advance, which we've done for those 5 positions. So that's
But
something
mine's
that's
not in there, is it?
no, yours is not in there. It doesn't, the reason it's important for the others is that we're proposing to change their rating. So bumping them from, the county has these ratings of H and then a number, letter and a number.
Step ratings.
And then there's steps, and then there's classification also. So if you're proposing to change those, it has to go to the classification committee.
And those conversations happen as a result of conversation you have had with those staff? Or is that
Yes.
something you just realized needed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a union rep on the staff? Just a question.
No, there's no designated union shop steward.
But there is one for the county.
Yes, there's a leadership committee for the county that's elected by the union.
So do we have a liaison to that on the staff?
All union members are
Their own people?
able to talk to their
Okay,
leadership whenever they want.
just checking.
And do they usually accept your proposal? What the process, is it kind of a back and forth, or?
We have not done this for quite a while, so the process has changed a bit, so I don't know.
We'll see.
Well, if I could just speak up too, I think it's
Sure.
great that you guys are, doing a committee and looking at this comprehensively, and just, with respect to my own job, there's nothing controversial or anything about it. I've been here for 22 years. My job has evolved a lot. And so my job description really doesn't reflect what I do. Because when I was hired, I did all the stewardship for the organization. And now, we have a stewardship staff of 7, 8, I don't even know, and more in the summer. So there's nothing controversial about it. It's just, for me personally, for me to just rewrite that job description and, hand it to Lincoln, I like that it's part of a bigger look at things, and actually, so I'm glad that's not in the new, going through with the others, because I think it's important to, to look at things comprehensively, so. And I love your idea of, getting a little input from everyone, whatever way you can, that's, efficient and.
It's to support you
Yeah,
all.
That's
It's not
great,
about
so
us. It's
thanks
for you.
everyone for, looking at that, because I think it's, it strengthens the organization to revisit these things now and then, because we've grown a lot and.
Yeah.
Great.
One more.
That's great.
One more comment, piece of information along that line, and on the subject of retaining a consultant, is that in thinking about this and going through my old files last week, I dug up we actually had a consultant report done for us. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It was before COVID.
Twenty
That's
seventeen.
how I did things, 2017, yeah. So, and I looked at that report, which was done by Phil Shepherd, some of you remember it. And I think it was very good, still very relevant. That report was a recommendation, which we were asking for, that we hire a stewardship manager at the time. So Phil made a recommendation to that effect. It got changed in the process. So anyway, it's a very good report. It needs updating because some of the information has changed. We've hired a lot of staff since then, kind of rearranged things. But I think it possibly with an update link, and it would be good to share that with the commission for background
Sure.
knowledge. Okay, we're still on the topic of future agenda items.
I had one quick note to add, because there was review of the acquisition matrix criteria. The agricultural committee got together and did a quick review and kind of a background of the criteria for acquisitions and easements on that. And it was helpful just to think about it, realize that our values haven't changed. We just need to articulate them every once in a while so that everybody's on the same page.
So are you guys ready to report out on that, Tim? Not right now, but
No.
at some point?
Not
No.
Maybe
just yet. It was
Okay,
we made no decisions. Obviously, we couldn't.
And that's just related to ag acquisition.
Yes.
you made no decisions, but will you have a recommendation?
Probably we'll take another meeting.
Okay,
or something like that.
well, so that's cooking, that's getting in line for,
Yes.
good, okay, we'll look forward to that.
So, sounds like things are being worked on in the background.
Yeah, good. Anybody else? Okay,
Just for the consolidation thing, I would just offer that the first item on here, the accessibility, that can get dumped under the consistent stewardship standards and infrastructure standards.
seems to me it's kind of a topic on its own, Doug. I mean, I think it's a relatively brief discussion, but it's, the way I conceive of it, it's a policy.
Well, all of those things are policies, and it's all about how we go about developing and doing our properties, right? And that's just one element of all of those things, and it can have more weight, but it's still listed under that topic.
I think I put it on the agenda, and my thought at the time was not so much standards for physical facilities, but standards which about allowing access, and I'm thinking specifically of things like motorized chairs and stuff for people who can't otherwise make it. So to me, it's a separate discussion and hopefully probably a brief one. I just think it's important.
We have had conversations about this at staff meetings.
Okay.
So we do have staff interest in really carrying us forward.
Yeah. So it sounds like that one is pretty ripe for discussion too.
We're getting there.
Okay, well, let us know when.
Yep.
Look for recommendation. Okay. That it for future agenda items. I suggest that we wait a little bit for putting dates on those things until we decide what's most important and what's ready to come up next.
That sounds good.
Okay, well, let's take that break finally. We're perfectly right on time.
I like to hear that. There you go.
Okay, it's 11 or 10:55. I'll call the meeting back to order with the stewardship report. Who'd like to go first?
I'm gonna jump in here quickly, to talk about the, trail honoring Louise Dustry item. We've been talking with her family, for those of you who aren't familiar with Louise, she was one of our most ardent supporters. I think probably having attended even the most number of meetings, retreats, et cetera, of any person outside the organization. So when Louise passed away, there was some discussion about doing something to honor her commitment to the land bank. And I think what we're homing in on is a trail of some kind to honor her. And I'm just throwing that out there so you all are aware and are okay with that concept. We have in the past that we do have a policy about memorial benches, which does not allow memorial benches, and there's a good rationale for that, and that you can have lots and lots of benches put in places that you may not want them. This is a little bit different. So doing a trail or some kind of, I think loop we're talking about now seems totally appropriate to me, frankly. So just throw that out there, see if I get some reactions from commissioners.
On
Do
San
you need a motion, Lincoln, or would you like a motion?
I don't know that we need a motion. I think a consensus decision is good
Okay.
enough, really.
I would wholeheartedly support it, and I expect you're thinking of San Juan.
Yes.
I'd agree with that. I saw Louise at more meetings than I could count.
She was an amazing.
I don't know how many commissioners knew Louise, but,
Yeah.
well, most of you, that's good. But as Lincoln said, Louise and her buddy Eileen used to attend almost every meeting. And it was always good to have, if nobody else was there, Louise and Eileen were there. And I miss them both. So I would also support that.
Definitely.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think next, since we have folks from the Grange,
Can we just go back a moment?
yes.
I'd be interested in the accessibility conversation along with the Louise Trail conversation, just as something to remember. Since the last time I saw her, she was riding her bicycle on the Red Tail Trail, which is just a month before she died. So,
Wow.
Yep.
that'd be great.
So we have folks from the Grange here to talk about the Overmarsh Farm project, give us a little bit of an update. So Roger and Bruce.
All right. Folks, you feel comfortable with me sitting here and giving a report?
Whatever you like.
Thanks. Roger Ellison, I'm the president of San Juan Island Grange. We own a building in town. We've had some important meetings. With me is Bruce Robinson. And Bruce has something to hand out to the commissioners.
Well, I do. Why don't we just pass it out as we go so that people can pay strict attention to it?
Oh, good planning. All right. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. So we're here to give an oral report on progress at Overmarsh Farm Commons. And the biggest thing that happened was we signed the lease last week.
Yay.
Lincoln and I went to the courthouse. We had witnesses. We had a photographer. We signed the papers.
You get the county seal.
I feel very good about it. Lessor and lessee. We've made progress since we signed an initial, go ahead and get started agreement maybe a year ago. And we have about a quarter acre ready to be planted. Oh, no, a quarter acre plus an additional quarter acre ready to be planted in April. We've staked out another maybe half an acre nearby for expansion in case we have more growers, knocking at the door, beating at the gate. We've had 42 requests for information or land. And most of the people say they want to participate in the community garden or hopefully a community supported or CPA model, collaborative farm. CPA means community participatory agriculture. There's a great example on Orcas, OCPA, where people work together on farming land in an integrated sort of way and reap the harvest and split it up. We have, I think we've got actual participation agreements and initial payments, agreements and payments from maybe 30 to 35 people. Does that sound about right?
Wow.
And everybody who's requested land has gone everywhere from 100 square feet up to, participating in a collaborative farm or having some kind of membership in a community orchard or a heritage orchard. So for the heritage orchard, I've been talking to people at Quiot, and I've been talking to Boyd Pratt, who's our local agricultural historian, about varieties that were important, maybe 100 years ago in the heyday of San Juan Island agriculture. Try to get some of that enthusiasm back. And we know that there's a really strong interest in heritage apples and heritage pears and taking care of trees and maybe forming some kind of orchard society. We'll see. Just one of those things. Also, speaking of Boyd Pratt, we are talking about, say, color schemes and designs for any sheds or any built environment, built infrastructure, just because he knows what would look right or based on what historically looked right on this island. So we're not trying to be too out there. We're trying to fit in. And I guess I also want to say that we take this whole thing very seriously, this responsibility that we're taking land that was set aside by the land bank to steward for island families and giving us a chance to increase their access to a particular chunk of land to grow food. Very important, and it might even mean in the long run, we attract one additional plumber, one additional electrician, maybe a butcher, people that are part of the working class and maybe self-employed who would have a hard time buying into this really competitive real estate environment. So if they can tolerate a small house, a rental house, because they have a chunk of land they can call, their own for a few seasons, that's terrific. That might be the best thing about this program we've started up. And the notion that it fits into our Grange's resilience planning and programs. For instance, last night we had 50 people here as a kickoff to our resilience series. Every third Thursday, we're going to have another presenter talking about why resilience is important. How are we doing on this island? What are the things we need to be concerned about? What are the opportunities to work together? It's basically going to be community resilience rather than individual preparedness. And the first person to do a solo presentation will be Brendan Cowan of the county and town Department of Emergency Preparedness. He always has a really good job. We see Overmarsh Farm Commons as being a really important part of our resilience. Anytime we can grow food and maybe fiber and who knows, medicinal herbs on a piece of land that we have access to and can't actually easily get kicked off from. Very important. Bruce, am I missing anything?
Well, not a lot. I just wanted to add a few things if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank Charlie for all the communication he's had. He gets texts from me quite regularly, and he's very quick to respond, and so he's been very, very helpful for us to move forward with the project. I'm personally a bit surprised at how wet the soil is. It's slowing us down a little bit and getting out there. We're projecting that maybe we can get started on creating rows and planting in the middle of April at the very earliest. So we're trying to convince people, don't rush, don't be getting all those tomatoes started until you have some sense, or at least you know that you can take care of them at home until they're ready to go into the garden at Overmarsh. As you know, we've talked about this being a long-term project, and so we're not really rushing to tear up a lot of land and open up space. We just want to work very methodically and make sure that people can begin their project without being up to their knees in mud. That's just, I've been out there. We do have some rows of winter vegetable out there. And if you're at the farmer's market next time, which I think is in a couple more weeks.
April 5th.
Yeah, there should be some product there from our garden that will be for sale at Grange booth. So it'll be fun to see how that pans out. And my understanding is we will take some of the money to go back into the project, but then we'll also put some money into the Fresh Crops program, which will allow people to buy our vegetables as well. Let's see, what else I could add in there? Yeah, it's just very exciting. Everybody I talked to, I've started a compost team, calling it, where we're putting together compost that will eventually be ready to go onto the land. And the people that I've worked with have been very, very responsive and really happy to come out and help me turn compost and put new batches and so on. And it may grow into a little bit more of a community repository for appropriate vegetable matter coming from home. Slow on that one, just because we don't want to get overwhelmed with things coming from people's homes, but we will be taking any waste materials out of the garden and putting it into the compost as well, so we have a place for that to go. Yeah, looking forward to improving that soil and maybe making it a little bit more capable of starting a little earlier. I know I have a garden in another space that's probably just capable of being wet, but because I worked it for 3 or 4 years, I'm on it now, weeding it and so on. So I'm hoping that will help in the Overmarsh as well. There's a lot of clay in that soil, but we can get more organic material in there, and I think we'll find, and maybe some biochar. We talked about that a little bit. It might help to drain a little bit better. That's about all I have to say. Oh, and I will say, I brought some newsletters that we made, and Overmarsh Farm Commons is the front page of it. This is something we put out at the Ag Summit. And I know a lot of you were there, but if you weren't, I'll leave these and you can just pick one up and take it home if you like. That would be great. So you find out about the project, and you'll find out other things that the Grange is doing too.
I'll just add a couple things. We met out there yesterday to discuss the placement of a greenhouse. That'll be the next piece of infrastructure going in April. That's the goal. 10 by 40 feet near the parking area. So you'll see that being erected. And that'll be for propagation and starts, I believe. And on our end, we're continuing to work on the fence, perimeter fence, getting the water system flowing. It's very close. And yeah, there'll be a lot of activity out there this summer. So that'll be fun to be a part of and watch.
I do remember that I wanted to mention that we're hiring a project manager. That should happen next week. And we're excited to bring somebody with some experience on the land and get them working on organizing. It's been a lot of work for the steering committee. We'd like to spread that a touch. So,
And the deadline for application is midnight tonight. So if you have an interest in being the Overmarsh farm manager, here's your opportunity. Okay, midnight tonight. This greenhouse is a really good example of community enthusiasm. We put it out as a project for the fair funding program. At the fair, the Community Foundation takes in votes and money for a project, and we were funded over $6,000 to purchase this greenhouse, which we'll be installing next month.
yeah.
Hopefully.
And hopefully in the next month, we'll get the irrigation lines laid out. We've got a main line down to the garden space, but we haven't really put anything into the garden yet. We're waiting to see how we're going to create our rows and so on. We are hoping to use drip irrigation on most of the garden, so we'll try to keep the water use down and be able to expand without concern for water.
Do we have time for a few questions?
Absolutely.
All right, Peggy?
When are the recommendations for the people who are applying due? Tonight too?
Oh, those people?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, go to our website, sanjuangrange.org to get details.
Mhm.
They can see the questions. They'll be asked, of course, for a little bio and a little bit of background information on their abilities, et cetera, references and
So the references, when are the references to?
upon submission of the application.
Ew. Okay,
Is that unusual?
I don't know, it's on my list, so I know I have to write a recommendation for somebody. So I just trying to figure out when it's due.
Okay, great. Midnight tonight.
Good, thank you, I love deadlines.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments for Roger and
Tim?
Bruce? Tim?
I was wondering if the resilience series is gonna be either recorded or streamed, or is there a way to see it off island?
Yeah, last night was a panel discussion and we thought it would be really difficult, so I think we just got a voice recording.
Oh.
So for future ones, we might actually have them taped, edit them down, put them on YouTube, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if we can get the presenter to do a little dance, then it can go on
TikTok.
TikTok. Thank you. That ticky.
Yeah, you knew
thing.
what I meant.
Yeah.
All right.
Now that it's back.
Questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
I've forgotten, Charlie, this is, I guess, for you. I've forgotten whether it was written in the lease, but this is something that, it's great news. It's a partnership that we should celebrate together. I'm wondering about, signage. Do we have land bank signage on the property and,
We're working on it.
okay,
Yes,
good.
there'll be, and it's in the lease too, as far as collaborating on signage and, we'll have our land bank preserve sign going back up at some point.
Good.
Coordinate with these guys on their end.
So there'll be a little bit of interpretive language talking about the partnership. I think that's great because both organizations should be recognized in that.
Yeah, and signage at other properties is terrific. I like seeing the land bank.
I agree.
Signage. It's really good. Peggy?
I think, I'm really excited about this project, I'll say that. I think it's bold and it's bold in the right ways. And, one of the questions I had from the beginning is management of a vast number of people. And I assume that's mostly gonna entirely be the job of the coordinator, or will that also be kind of a team approach?
I think the farm manager will be asked to please manage the people. and then bring things up to the steering committee that need to be brought up. But yeah, I think it'll be as close to the ground.
Yeah.
As possible. That's our strategy. And that means the steering committee is going to have to occasionally come up with new interpretations of guidelines and that sort of thing, just to fit with range and land bank policies. Done.
Just at the segue, this is not this, but I just wanted to call out and recognize Roger and Anita separately for our Zylstra, lower Zylstra plantings. It was a monumental task for finding whips of willow, red osier, Pacific crabapple, and some other species, and they were very generous in getting the Island Conservation Corps access to their property. And not only that, but I understand you provided some sort of mentorship of how you go about tending willows for these purposes.
I just can't help myself.
And not only was that like received, like that was like one of their, probably the favorite part of that whole project for that cohort of learning those techniques. They've gone and have been having conversations with Public Works about willows and some of the right of ways and things, and wanting to apply those techniques elsewhere, knowing that there's going to be ongoing restoration techniques. So not only did we get, probably several thousand whips for that restoration project from Roger and Anita, but it's kind of going to help with projects down the road for the education and time you spent with the ICC. So thank you very much for
Hey, you're
all
welcome.
that time.
And it was worth it because we got all that free labor in managing our willow caucus. Great. Let's do it again. Any other praise?
Yes.
Bring it on.
All right.
I bought some good stuff from you at the farmer's market.
Yes, yes.
I think you're all aware, we are underway with a farm plan with the district out there, so that's great.
Well, I'd love to schedule a field trip, sometime, maybe a month or 2 out.
Yes, and Bruce will know when the land is dry enough for us to walk around on it.
Yeah. Well, thank you both, and thanks for bringing us that report. I think it's important. It's good for us to know, and good partnership. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the partnership. Okay, we're gonna take off.
Okay.
Thanks.
Guys.
I'm gonna just leave these by projector.
Sure.
You would like to look at that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, continuing with the stewardship report, who'd like to go? Stewards?
Well, no, Tanya, do you want to introduce the email you passed on from Friday Harbor High School? You want to
Oh, sure. The land bank received an email from Friday Harbor High School. It's a junior class or their community project. The Friday Harbor High School juniors are required to do a community project as part of their graduation. And someone had asked or put forth a proposal of a fishing gear exchange, and the way it was put there. It's modeled after the free libraries that have been popping up around the island. So the photo, I don't know if it was meant to be representative or just a suggestion, but it would be a box where regulations and I think lures would be installed and kept. So when folks come to Zylstra, they would have access to these products. And the suggestion in the email was putting it on a post somewhere in the parking lot. And then I forwarded to staff the discussion. And then that's the intro. We haven't had a chance to discuss it yet. We're gonna
So
discuss it now.
freshwater fishing gear.
I suppose so. I'm not a fisher person, so I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be for at Zylstra Lake specifically, and, I think we can chat with them about design and purpose and things. I know that one of the things that has been a goal was continuing youth engagement. We're doing that in a whole variety of different ways. This is this pretty simple little project, and it also just seems that if it doesn't work out, it can also, go away pretty easily. But since it's something that's a little outside the norm, we don't generally have leave fishing gear boxes on our preserves. and those sorts of things. We thought it doesn't necessarily require approval, but we just wanted to bring it to the commission just to see if there was any sort of red flags or whatnot. And wanted to do that today, just, honoring the students' timeline. If we waited a month, might be kind of too late for them, so.
Barbless. Barbless hooks.
Yeah, I think freshwater, they allow bar.
Right. Sure
Most
do.
of what's happening out at Zilchner is catch and release, so I imagine
A while ago, they used to have a fishing gear kind of exchange at fairgrounds, right, as kind of the season was opening. I think it was just some local people here that did that.
I think that's great.
Are you looking for wine courts then to?
Yeah, it's like one of these things that I really don't know that there's demand for this or that there'll be interest or there'll be kept up or anything. But again, it's just sort of meeting somebody where they are and it doesn't seem like it's gonna be a large distraction and modify things if it's needed, if it's something that's useful to the community there and supportive. Again, doesn't seem like it's like giant infrastructure or things that are gonna be difficult for us to deal with.
You know, I remember a survey done a couple of years ago, and I don't remember who did it, but it was a survey of recreational activities. And I think fishing was at the top. And that's pretty much true nationally from what I've seen. So seems to me it's a good service, and that's one of the things that was part of the vision of Zylstra. So we should encourage it, I think.
Thank you.
So for Lopez, I guess since we're on the topic of fishing, last fall, Quiot, was hosting some fishing Fridays at Hummel Lake, at the Washington Fish and Wildlife, boat launch area. And I was talking, with the man who's organizing those, and he said, he asked if we could do some at the Land Bank Preserve, because we have a little dock there, and so, we might be putting those together. I'll let Tanya know. Yeah, things are going well on Lopez, and, it's spring, the grass is growing, I've got the mower running. Mowing. And, I've been plugging away at Wapna, just various things to get ready for opening, getting some signs printed, updating maps. In conversation with the BLM about, maintenance, this year. And, so just, if you have it on your calendar, Saturday, May 3rd, and Tanya is helping with some, arrangements for how the opening will be organized. And then other things for Lopez is we've advertised the seasonal field position for Lopez and Orcas. And this week we're reviewing applications, so proceeding on that front.
Amanda, I guess Bree at BLM still has her staff, but any thoughts about how that might impact us?
Well, they will not have seasonals this year. They might be able to have an intern, which was on their plan.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where they were at last year, and I think the previous year. So we'll just continue to be in communication with them about,
Okay.
keeping.
But they have no
keeping
money
staff
for
present.
transportation. They can't buy ferry tickets and things like that.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about some small needs, purchase needs for Wapmau, and, we've been alternating like who pays for the outhouse pumping, so it's our turn to
Okay.
do that anyway.
More to be revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. How about the other side of the room? Anything?
think I covered it in the report. I'll just add, it's a little detail thing. Spring is here. We're getting into gear again at the nursery, and Margot's done something that's been on my list about 10 years, which is create labels for our permanent plantings at the nursery, so that when people come and visit, they know what the plants are and they don't have to be there spouting off names. So just trying to make it a little more friendly to visitors. It's not open to the public. It's San Juan Preservation Trust land with the land bank running the nursery, but we do get a lot of people through there wondering what they're looking at. So I just wanted to report on that project finally happening. And because we have new commissioners all the time, I'll just offer to all of you again that if you're ever interested in seeing what we're doing out there, just let me know. Happy to show you around with labels.
Melissa, do you want to say something about Kings Street?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, we have more native plants at Kane's Street is where the land bank office is, and the front yard we call Driggs Park. It's open to the public in a very low-key way, a couple of picnic tables. So last fall, we created a bunch of sort of border beds in the front to showcase landscaping with native shrubs and wildflowers. So those are just starting to come to life. It usually takes a couple of years for these things to really fill in and look complete, but it looks really promising so far. And we'll have an interpretive sign. Maybe Jacob Bart he was working on it last week. We should have an interpretive sign up in the front. And then this complements the entrance to our office where we turned a patch of lawn into native meadow. So we're just trying to showcase how the opportunity for businesses and, you know, little unused spaces in any place, how it could make habitat. So yeah, that's been fun.
And you also got a gift of some money, Eliza, for a republication of the meadowscaping
Yeah, I
guide.
forget the exact amount, but the wildflower guide that we created last year, we printed 300 and they got snatched up, and the San Juan County Master Gardener Foundation, or maybe it's the Master Gardener Foundation of San Juan County. We went back and forth. Whatever they're called, they gave us a nice little grant to print 500 more. Because that's a little bit, you know, out of our sort of land bank, you know, what we do. So it was a really nice partnership with them to get more educational stuff out.
Good. Okay, Charlie, Aaron, anything?
Yeah, let's see, going back a little bit to the BLM, I attended a webinar put together to just talk about, public lands nationally, and this one was focused on the BLM with anticipation that the, public processes are really gonna get cut short, and things like the advisory committee will be removed. And then the broader fear is that they'll be keying up properties to sell for affordable housing, packaging it that way. It was just nice to see kind of these regional, national efforts that are looking to protect our public land institutions. Been getting in the field quite a bit. I'm also meeting a volunteer, Tom Pence, after the meeting to go pull spurge laurel on Beaverton. So it's been nice getting back out more. Let's see, we got some data from the trust. Nancy's still on, thanks to their staff for pulling data from their conservation plan to help us figure out what we need or want for ours to carry that further. And then regarding Frankie and the county's framework, we had talked about her coming, and then also if the commission could review that framework and submit kind of questions for her to prepare in advance of coming to the meeting, that would be her ideal, and we can share that. But then, do you want to talk about the NRCS? Brian had a question related to. Did you have a question related to conservation easements?
Federal
Not
funding
that I can,
for ag
Okay,
easements.
well.
oh, for ag easements, yeah, we don't know what will happen.
I thought-
Yeah, it was the NRCS
Right,
potential. But we don't,
I didn't
We'll
know
keep
if there was like a
exploring it.
direct question that
yeah,
we need to talk about.
Yeah.
It happened in the beginning.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks,
That's it.
Aaron. Peter, anything?
Morning, everybody. I was hoping to come over at one point, but I have a meeting right after this here. So I think just a quick update on a couple things that aren't in the stewardship report or could be elaborated on a bit. So we're now done mapping the thinning area at Crescent Beach. DNR was out this week and finished that up. So we posted one sign that has a QR code that links to our website, and I've already had somebody ask for more information, so I'm going to try to work with Tanya and flesh out a few details on the website. But if all goes well with the federal funding there, we should start in July with the project after a bid process in the next couple of months here. At the North Shore, we hired Marguerite Greening, a local landscaping company here, and she and her crew pruned all the heritage apple trees out at North Shore, which was great. I've been trying to pull that together for a while, and this is probably a 3-year process to get those trees back to reasonable shape. And part of the contract is to lead some volunteer events or help lead some volunteer events. So in the fall, we're going to do a kind of a orchard workshop, and then in the spring, some grafting, and probably just put a few trees in between those trees, since those are kind of 100 years old and mostly in a bit of decline. Although I think they're, they still have quite a bit of life in them, and they produce a reasonable apple crop. So let's see, started working on the interpretive signage that will be funded by the Preservation Trust grant, the RCO grant. We're going to try to get that in there, in the ground before the end of the year. And that's 2 signs. It's a mitigation sign for removal of all the buildings, the history of the property as a resort, and then a complementary Coast Salish sign. So we'll be working with a consultant on that, which will thankfully be funded by the Trust's grant as well. We are meeting next week with a consultant out of the South Turtleback parking area to kick off the design of the new parking layout there. So that'll be the main parking lot and the overflow area, just kind of reconfiguring that to work a lot better. And there'll be a little more capacity within the existing footprint. So kind of excited to get that hopefully built this summer, fall. We'll see. And then lastly, Kaufeld, just the septic replacement project is still waiting on the final plan, but hoping to get that in for permitting and out for bid April at the latest. So I'll keep you posted on that. And then with Charlie, we're going to try to get in a heavy use area cost share project for the area around the mobile slaughter site. So that's an area that's had a history of being pretty muddy, and it's accessible to others using the mobile slaughter site, and made sense to try to tidy that up and make it a little more resilient, particularly in the winter. There's a lot of mud and runoff. So we're going to try to get in a cost share application by June, I think it was. And then hopefully we'll get some funding for that. That's all I have.
Just a
Yes.
quick question, Peter. I was wondering if you were considering the Turtleback South parking reconfiguration. The establishment is something like a parking for ADA and or picnic table that's accessible by someone who cannot possibly make the trip up the hill, that kind of thing.
Well, hadn't considered a picnic table specifically, but yes, this is part of a project that it's kind of described a little more detail in the management plan, where we're going to do an accessible trail around that south field, and that's part of a oak planting effort as well. So all of that will happen in the next year, plus or minus. We'll get the parking lot rebuilt, get the oaks planted, I think this winter. Once we get that sort of figured out, we'll do the loop trail around that field, and there will be an ADA parking space and easy access to the loop trail. We haven't decided what sort of surface the trail will be yet, but our aim is to make it very accessible.
As part of the accessibility discussion, and while we're not in favor of benches necessarily, I do think it's important to create places where people can be outside on our preserves who are not able to ambulate very well. So that's a logical place to me. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, some benches, and, just generally just a very flat, accessible trail experience there. Picnic tables in particular are challenging because you have to move them around to mow, and, I don't know, they're very, very park-like. So that's probably a discussion for our recreation standards kind of project at some point.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Anything else from commissioners? Okay, before we go into executive session, we have another public comment period. A couple of members of the public still here, so any public comments? Okay, so if not, we will now adjourn into, we're right on time too. Adjourn into executive session to consider the acquisition of real estate and negotiations on price. We will come back only to adjourn the meeting. No decision will be made, so we will adjourn the meeting at 11:10. And we will adjourn the meeting. See you in April.
And on Locos.
On